My name is Rohini Chandra. Almost 2 years ago, I was sitting on the balcony of a 10th floor apartment in a tall building. I was in India, in the state of Haryana. This is where my parents reside during their retirement, in the remote and most beautiful countryside. That's right, I am the daughter of Indian immigrants who once spent 40 years in America, which makes me a first generation Asian Indian American. And let me tell you, I get the best of both worlds. I visit India every few years or so, and every time I visit, it's a culture shock that I have to digest. It's like entering a whole new world. And the first sign that I am in India is the smell. It's a mix of ashes, the spices from cooking, the sweat from the heat, and the pollution. And so there I was sitting peacefully on the balcony, and I was visited by the usual two pigeons, or lovebirds as I love to call them. And my dad brought me a plate of roti smothered in butter, or a whole wheat flat tortilla. Now, my friends and family know me as an absolute free spirit, always looking for an adventure. And so I had to look for my next calling. The sound of the lorries or the trucks and the auto rickshaws in the distant highway was a sign that I had to get going with my day. And so I was looking down in the fields below and I was like, where's my next adventure? I saw the sheep and the herders and I was like, okay, okay. And there it was, this very dark haze or smoke in the distant sky. And I was like, what is that, Dad? And he said, well, it's that time of the year or the end of the harvesting season for farmers when they clear their fields for the next set of crops in the new season. And there was this family of four in the fields. They had these warlike machetes and they were slashing their crops from the very root. And I was like, wow, look at them working so hard. And I've been observing them for quite a while. They've been working from dawn till dusk. And I told my dad, I'm going to grab my camera. Let's capture some footage of them right now. Let's go. And I just want to meet them. But then I stopped. I said, no. Women cannot travel alone in this part of the country. In fact, a lot has happened to women in this area, some scary events. And I said, yeah, women always have to look over their shoulders, being alert constantly 24/7. And my dad was like, yeah, you're this free spirit always looking for trouble. But then I said, it's just a family of four working hard. What could be the harm? And so I compelled my dad into driving me to the field. And we were immediately met by these two women who had this immediate reaction of fear in their eyes, a glint of fear. But then I saw this older man. He came running towards us and he had this raggedy tunic and wrinkly dark skin and he was stinking of sweat and he was raising his arms and he was happy to see us. And I was like, oh my God. And I immediately identified him as my farmer uncle. He was ecstatic. He immediately started telling us that he harvests this crop called bajra or pearl millet, and he was showing us how to take the grains off the crop and how to make a dough and roti or the flat bread from it. And he started speaking in this very local language, and despite me not understanding a word of what he was saying, I could feel the love emanating from his gestures and the way he was speaking and his expression. The women were still watching us skeptically, and so to break the ice further, my dad and I offered to take them back to their village to give them a ride, and they said yes. It was lunchtime. And so the Indian farmer uncle was in the back seat of our car and he stuck his head out like a dog who was enjoying the breeze back home. And at their village, we were met by these different characters. There was the neighbor with missing teeth and her son who was obsessed with his phone. There was also the intimidating cow at the gate who was, we were told, very unpredictable in nature. So we stayed away from the cow. And they were all intrigued by my Hindi because they were like, for someone who wasn't born and brought up in this country, you're speaking quite well. So I was like, thank you, thank you. And then they called me over to milk the buffalo, and I said, "Oh my God, I could possibly not do that." Buffalo, by the way, are very brute and or big in size, and they can be very intimidating. And so I said, "All right, I'll see what happens." And this long line of aunties, nieces, and daughters formed, and they were all waiting with their pails for the buffalo milk. And I finally got my chance to get some. And I have never drank buffalo milk in my life, and it was so creamy, rich, and delicious. I was very grateful for this experience. It was so simple, fresh, and new for me. In fact, it broke my perception of the North Indian culture, which is typically known to be conservative, strict, and aggressive. And now looking back, I'm even more grateful for the fact that I did not feel any judgment or labels placed on me. In fact, you could say I was a wandering spirit who just walked on to their turf and who just wanted to show an appreciation and respect for their incredible work ethic and values and way of life. Travel can do this. And this is why I encourage travelers to break from the tour group and to find these hidden gems. And when we hurdle over that wall of hesitation, we can many times find this bountiful goodness and beauty, and it is totally worth it. And now, a couple of years later, I can't help but think more about this farming family. I remember when these uh, news events were popping up and on my TV, and I was like, wow, these farmer protests were happening in September of 2020. Over a quarter million farmers had gathered at the capital of North India, fighting peacefully through the violence, the slander, the cold, the pandemic. And they were all looking to represent themselves against these private interests that were overriding their protection. In fact, it is very important to know that over half the country of India is involved in the agricultural business. And I couldn't help but think and empathize more for them as they had treated me so hospitably and kindly. Travel can many times put perspective into our reflection. In fact, now looking back also, I can't help but appreciate their way of life. They were so happy doing what they do. I could never imagine doing what they do, by the way, working so hard from dawn till dusk. I feel very grateful at the same time for my privileges as an American. India, by no way, is no perfect. It has a push and pull between modernity and progression. It's got these contradictory age old practices. But at the end of the day, it does have an innate or higher calling of a concept called Guru Vishwa. It's the cultural teaching of peace, equality, and respect for all beings, including nature. So now looking back, I recall this experience as an absolute spiritual revelation, one that evokes compassion and respect for those who are kind to others and who are very hardworking. Thank you.